Hello, hello, hello. How are you all today? Very good evening to all our viewers, and we are back after a sabbatical. I am KS with Nurture Life's Converse with KS, and today, being the beginning of spring, we have somebody who is full of spring, and that is Sophia Manaralis. I hope I have got the name right, or is it Manarolis?
Got it.
Welcome to the show, Sophia. So nice to have you here today.
Thank you so much. I'm really grateful to be here today. We've wanted to do this in the past and
Thank you.
our schedules, but now we're going to make it work. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Thank you so very much for being here. As always, I am going to do a beautiful introduction for this young lady, I call her. Today being a day that many people might actually have probably disappointments because across the world, the day is celebrated as Valentine's Day. So there are people who might be feeling depressed, who might be feeling that we don't belong, we don't have something, or left out. But today is the day that I would like to wish all of them that if you don't have something, you've got the universe. And hence, I think all of us should be celebrating ourselves. Now, Sophia here is an M.Ed in mental health, and she's also a mental health strategist. She's an M.Ed in psychology, I'm sorry. She is an amazing speaker and author of Depression Doesn't Discriminate. She has become a beacon of resilience, having battled severe depression and multiple suicide attempts. It's very special to me because she's also the founder of the 316 movement. She now has become a mental health warrior who has been championing the cause of empowering others to embrace their vibrant and fulfilling life. She also has successfully run her private practice in Canada as a clinical psychologist. I don't want to give a very long introduction. Let's get to know her better. So, Sophia, welcome to our show. And my first question to you would be, let's get to know you. Let's get to know who Sophia is. I would like to know
Okay.
and why psychology.
Okay. So I think there's a little bit of a delay, so I'm just going to wait a second. I think I'm good to go. So thank you again for having me, Kay. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. Where do I begin? I know you said to get to know me a little bit more, but then you also said why psychology. Ultimately, I'll put it this way. I really do believe that my purpose here in life is to prevent as many people as possible from ever burning out, ever crossing into depression, and ever attempting to end their lives. Now, I have survived 4 major depressive episodes and more attempts to end my life than I can count on my fingers and toes. I say this very openly, and I'm grateful to be able to say it with such ease because it ties in with my purpose, right? So when you said why psychology, given this is my purpose, it only made sense that I would navigate towards doing an undergraduate in psychology, a bachelor's in psychology, and then a master's in counseling psychology. But overall, the combination of my studies, my education, my training, and my experiences with this monster known as depression, I believe is a gift because not many people could even call it as such, but I really believe is a gift. And I really believe I am blessed to be able to combine both of these experiences to help people feel lighter, freer, and more alive. So I hope that answers a little bit of the question because I could go on with such an open-ended question. So let me know what else you want to know and I'll let you know.
I would like to know your journey because I know that you are where you are, not just because of the fact that you happen to be there. It's because each one of us, I think, script our story through trials and tribulations that we have been through in life. So I know you have been through your bit. So let's talk
Mhm.
about that.
Well, the first time that I experienced major depression is when I was entering university. So, as a first year undergraduate student, I was going through a lot of anxiety. I was putting a lot of pressure on myself around the time of midterm exams. And before you knew it, I went through a severe anxiety attack, had a bit of a nervous breakdown, and essentially this developed into a major depressive episode. So this first started, this battle with mental health started when I was 18 years old, right? And now, for those who don't know, when one has first experienced a major depressive episode, that makes them more vulnerable and prone to experiencing another episode in the future if ever you're under a period of great distress, right? So there are different times in our life where there might be more stress, more pressure, and a lot of it having to do with how we view things and creating even more of it ourselves. But whatever the case may be, this set the stage. Now, I was studying in something else. I was actually studying political science. And as a result of having to withdraw from my studies, take that time to go through therapy and recover from that episode, I then decided to go back to university in psychology. I really already loved my psychology courses to begin with. These were my favorite courses. So it made most sense between what I had experienced, what I really enjoyed doing, to go into psychology at that point. Now, as the title of my book says, depression doesn't discriminate. It can happen to any single person on the planet, no matter the age, gender, religion,
Yes.
whatever, right? It doesn't matter. It could happen to anyone. And it could also happen to you while you're experiencing great moments in your life, because I was having an incredible year, but I wasn't tending to my needs and to sleeping well. And by the end of the third semester of my master's, so just shy away, one semester away of completing my master's degree, it happened again, right? I basically burnt out, kept pushing through the burnout. Because in North America, we tend to do that. I can't speak for the rest of the planet, but in North America, it's quite a pressure cooker, and sleepless nights are the norm. So, you just push through. But as a result of pushing through, and as a result of already being vulnerable from having first experienced depression 7 years prior, well, there's a fine line between burnout and depression. And I crossed over into it again. Now, luckily, I recovered after 6 months, and I went back and I completed my master's. But even after completing my master's degree, for multiple reasons that one could read in my book, the anxiety was really high, and it happened again for a third time. But this time on March 16th, 3/16 of 2011, right? Because in North America, the dates are written, the month is first and then the date. So on 3/16 of 2011
Correct.
is when I first attempted to end my life. So another thing most people don't know, that if you've also attempted to end your life once, you become more vulnerable and prone to doing that again in the future should you ever be majorly depressed. So this opened the door to, eventually, I had another episode 7 years later after coming back from my honeymoon, right? But again, after a year of pushing, ignoring my needs, right? Not listening to my needs, not loving myself like my life and business depend on it, because they really do depend on it. So I didn't do that. And as a result, it happened again. And this time lasted 13 months. So I had to shut down my business. It didn't matter how much money I had. It didn't matter how successful my social media following was at that point, or that I had a waiting list in an affluent neighborhood in Montreal, Canada. None of that mattered. So this is where the birth of the statement I say very often: without emotional wealth, financial wealth is worthless. And this is where I'm coming from when I make this statement, right? And this is what I want to teach people: to acquire more emotional wealth rather than be constantly focusing on making more financial wealth, because this is definitely something going on around the world. So yeah, that's, I mean, I could keep going, but that's a good chunk of my story.
One of the most beautiful things that I've liked about you from the day I have met is the candid, unapologetic way of how you live life. You talk about, your misgivings, whatever has happened, what you have done, good or bad, the way you talk about it with such courage, because many times it takes a lot of courage to be able to accept that I did this, it was not the right thing, but I did. So I bounced back and I'm a better human being today. It takes a lot of courage from the cultures that we come from, right? I come from back in India, you come from Greece, and we are conservative cultures, right? We are conservative cultures where we do not openly talk about the taboo subjects of mental health. We don't talk about having mental issues because it's taken wrongfully. So having said that, your take on the importance of parenting and parenting support in ensuring the mental well-being of children, because teenage is a difficult age. Back in our days it was not as serious as it is today, but I think we all have children that we deal with, who have teenager issues, who have hormonal issues, who have peer pressure. What do you think on this subject?
I really think that it's important that parents get educated more on the topic of depression. Okay, because like I said, and like the title, depression doesn't discriminate. And so I could tell you, and you could read more about it in the second chapter of my book. When I was 18, and that was now 22 years ago, and I told my mom, Mom, I have a problem. And based on what I was reading in my psychology textbook, it seemed to me that I had depression. And I started telling her, I think this is what I have. And I can't continue my semester. Like, I'm going to have to withdraw. This isn't going to work, right? The anxiety is too debilitating. I really didn't get the best reaction at that point. Now, my parents didn't understand this. Still to this day, a lot of people don't understand it. So I'm not judging them or blaming them or whatnot. But coming also from, we are of a Greek background, there was no such thing as one's child going to see a psychologist or getting help for something like this, or their own child having a problem or whatnot. It was just unacceptable. And so that reaction was very detrimental. It took me 3 months before I got help because they refused to get help for me. They thought it was just like a passing phase and whatnot. I'm lucky that eventually things turned around and they gave me the greatest support ever in terms of finding me a therapist, but also then becoming more understanding and more patient with me and whatnot. That's not always the case, to my understanding, from what I still see in certain cultures today. So the more people educate themselves about this, the more they equip themselves with tools as to, first of all, how to better communicate to your child should they be showing symptoms. But then, of course, like I said, educate yourself more. So understand what those symptoms even are. So you could even notice them before they get really bad, right? Before they get to a point where it's a very debilitating, depressive episode. It doesn't have to get that bad. It really doesn't. But so as long as we ignore the signs, ignore the symptoms, and don't show compassion when there's something going on there with our child, well, it could really go in a ugly direction. Okay. And I don't want that for anyone. I don't. That's why I keep saying that I think my mission is to prevent as many people as possible from ever going down this road. But it starts with educating yourself more and normalizing the conversation surrounding this so that no one feels ashamed to talk about it.
Yeah, very much. I remember having a wonderful conversation with you, and we were talking about the power of having faith in yourselves, faith in the spiritual world, faith in the universe, the supreme forces, and how that can actually help us to sort of, consolidate and be stronger and reach out for that inner strength that we can have. Your take on that, because I loved what you said, and I would love to hear it all over again so our viewers can actually learn from you.
Honestly, I truly believe that all of this happened for me. It took me some time to realize it, but I'm actually grateful for the experiences that I have had, right? They've allowed me to be an even more empathic therapist. They've allowed me to normalize the conversation, put out a movement of gratitude and hope, right? And the gratitude piece, meaning, well, let's prevent this from happening by becoming more grateful and integrating more gratitude on a day-to-day. And the hope is for help open people's eyes. So let's help open people's eyes so we normalize this conversation and no one ever suffer in silence ever again. Now, for me to be able to found this movement, to put this movement out there and turn it into a global movement, well, in essence, I had to be grateful and transform my adversity into prosperity. And for me to be able to do that is to also trust that it all happens for a reason. I really do believe that I survived as many times as I've had for a reason. And when you said earlier that it takes courage even to be able to come here and speak of this so candidly and whatnot, I don't even see it as courageous. And I'll tell you why. Because it comes so easily to me, and it already did from when I was 18. I spoke about it right away in my classes. I definitely was blessed with this gift of ease to talk about this. So it solidifies that clearly this happened for a reason. There's a reason that I speak that this happened to me as many times, or happened for me as many times as it has, and that I'm so open about it and so comfortable talking and sharing with the world. So I really think, the universe, well, God had something to do with that. And anytime another hurdle comes along, stop and reflect on, why is this happening for me, instead of fixating on it being something happening to me or to you. Think for a moment, take a step back, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, why is this happening for me? This has definitely helped me out ever since recovering from the last episode 6 years ago. Tremendously, actually.
I totally do believe every single word that you say, because even for me personally, I've always believed that it has been faith that has kept me going. And the fact that whatever I've been through, I'm grateful for my experiences, definitely, because I'm a better human being. And I think it took me closer to my purpose of being there for mankind. And I live and I revel in that, knowledge of knowing that. So it's a beautiful feeling indeed. And one of the things that I wanted to actually ask you, because I know you have been a clinical psychologist, you have definitely counseled patients, and I also know that you've had mentees. What has been one of your largest challenges when you have, with your patients and your mentees? What has been your challenge? What is it that you have seen? Because, you've been in Canada, you had a very successful practice. So North America has its own challenges. And now you're in Greece, and, you're going to be here in Dubai. I'm looking forward to seeing you very soon. And yeah, tell me.
Honestly, I can think of a most recent challenge. Now that I'm doing this work virtually, even, most of my clients, they're across the world. And I happen to be in Canada back in late July until middle of September. And at which point one of my clients, since she's from there, it was easy to just kind of meet up and have a session in person as opposed to virtual, which was great. But at the same time, my client was in crisis mode. And one day she attempted to end her life. And this actually happened, we were on the phone, right? So she had already begun and then messaged me something, and I video called her, and I was witnessing this happen. So I then ran. I drove over to her place to get to her in time, right? And I did. And it was a very terrifying experience, right? So I would say that that's probably one of the greatest challenges I've ever had. I've had clients who've thought of this before, and we've managed to bring the severity of those thoughts down and, never get to that point. But this is one of those moments where I experienced being in it with my client. And it also brought back a lot of my own experiences with what I had tried in the past. So that was definitely the most challenging experience I've ever had. But at the same time, I'm still very grateful to have experienced that. It gave me a sense of what I like experiencing, a little bit of everything. And so it gave me a sense of what this was like for my family and friends, right, when I was going through this. And again, it added even more to my empathy toolbox, if you'd like, right, for me to be able to experience this. But also, I've seen all the growth that has happened ever since through the power of gratitude. Because I have been coaching this client very much so into integrating more gratitude into daily life, to the point where we message each other daily ever since. And besides every other tool I've given her, and whatever else I've taught her in our sessions and in my course, gratitude, wow, has it ever helped shift this woman's growth and recovery at an exponential level, really. So we went from a suicide attempt, now I think it's 5 months ago, right, to this person really thriving today. There's still more to come, but like, I couldn't be more grateful for the greatest challenge I ever experienced in my practice over the course of, I graduated in 2010. So over the course of seeing clients over 14 years, or even before from my internship, so let's say over 15 years of seeing clients, this definitely was the greatest challenge, the scariest experience. And yet I'm still grateful for it. It happened for me. It happened for her, right? And yeah, so nothing phases me at this point.
Right. I would definitely want you to actually meet, Farha, who happens to be the founder of Nurture Life, because Nurture Life is an organization that works for mental health and mental well-being, and she's a champion of this cause. So one of these days, I'm definitely going to. I was hoping that she would be there just before, so I could get her to meet you, but she was busy, so she could not meet up with you. But then I definitely will make that opportunity for you to connect with her, and maybe you can work with Nurture Life in some particular manner to be able to help youngsters in India. So we have a lot of teenage issues. One of the things that I would love to touch base upon is, there are these inner demons, right? Inner demons that whether they are adults or teenagers, they go through. It's the peer pressure, the society, the competition that you have to put up from overflow of social media, or rather excess from social media, that, okay, so and such a person is doing this, I need to match up to that. These kind of things definitely add up to those inner demons, that I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not liked, or you seem to be competing with something that is a virtual existence of someone else, and it seems like there are all these competitions and this pressure that is building up upon you from a virtual world, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you battle them? Because it's going to be very important for a lot of youngsters, and even some adults who have gotten addicted to this battling of demons from the virtual world. So yeah, your advice.
Well, I like to call what's going on with a lot of people is encountering the comparison monster. So already we have a tendency to compare ourselves to others unfavorably, right? Because we're usually looking at what's going on the surface, but we're not seeing what's happening underneath. And so already this was a thought trap for the majority of mankind. Okay, like this is already something that happens now, ever since social media, and then just constantly being exposed, right, to people's highlight reel, because that's really usually what's happening there. Very few are going to be very honest about what's really going on in their lives, right, or talk about their darkest moments. Very few. So what goes on there now is that comparison has just very much been heightened, and people ultimately would benefit from just becoming more mindful and recognizing that you actually don't know what's going on behind that photo, right? So you're sitting there and unnecessarily suffering, right, over what's going on or from what you're seeing appear through your screen, right, without actually even meeting the person. So if people just took a step back, because we're really much lacking in mindfulness at this point, right? If people just took a step back and reflected for a moment, like, wait a second, who am I comparing myself to? I don't even know at this point with AI, I don't even know if this person's real. And I'm sitting there without having evidence that, what it is that they've actually even done to get to this, if this is really real to begin with, right? So one example I usually like to give that was before social media
Yeah.
was if someone just reflected, right, teens, right, and people in school, university, wherever, I could sit there and be studying for an exam, and so could a friend of mine, right? And suddenly I get a B minus, and she, or not even a C, right? I get a C and she gets an A. Now I could sit there and call myself all these names, right? I'm an idiot, I'm this, I'm that, right? Because she got an A and I got a C. Meanwhile, she was spending an extra 20 to 30 hours a week at the library leading up to that exam. And I was not, right? I had other things going on in my life that were really stressful. So I clearly didn't test at the same way that she did. And that doesn't make me an idiot or unintelligent. It really doesn't. It just means that I did not test well on that day, right? So this is what we mean by unfavorable comparisons. There's too many unfavorable comparisons going on to begin with. And without having evidence, I mean, if somebody had to go prove their innocence, for example, I know it seems like I'm going on a tangent, but if you just hear me out for a second. If you had to go prove your innocence in a court of law, right, and you didn't have evidence, and you're sitting there and providing assumptions as your evidence, well, I noticed that this person did this, so it must be true. And, or, you know what I mean? Like, it's, what are you doing there? And I often tell people to reflect on this. Just think of this equation. If I sat there and tried to prove to you on this interview or in another presentation that 2 + 2 = 9, you'd probably be thinking you wasted your time getting on this live stream today or on another workshop of mine because I'm sitting there trying to prove to you that 2 + 2 = 9. When you don't have evidence for what's going on in the other person's life and you're sitting there and you're comparing yourself to that person and then judging your own self and qualities based on that person, it's almost as if you're trying to convince anyone that 2 + 2 = 9, which is really a waste of time, right? So we could eliminate a lot of our own unnecessary suffering if we just stop and think for a second what we're actually doing there.
Yeah.
Of course, there are tools and strategies, right? When I work with someone, for us to really develop that further, it's not just this, this one thing, but just think about that whole 2 + 2 = 9 moving forward. That's my suggestion for today.
I know. One of the most beautiful things that I just recently, we were going to have a masterclass that we couldn't go through, but then, it came out of another conversation which we had during one of our other masterclasses from our Honest Network that we both are part of, and such an honor to be part of a network that's called the Honest Network, of course. And I'm going to thank Talha for connecting us both, by the way. One of the things that we commented upon and we spoke about was celebrating our uniqueness. And I remember you commenting on it and such beautiful words of wisdom from you. And I'm not going to repeat it because I want you to talk about how to celebrate your uniqueness.
Well, when I think back to that presentation, I think I was, I'll have to think about it for a second, but I remember reflecting on what was coming up for a lot of folks during that presentation. And really, I was asking people to reflect on why, like when they were hard on themselves, right? When someone was even pointing out something great about you, right? So someone gives you a compliment, someone tells you, how valuable you are to them or how great you are at the work that you do. And you're sitting there and questioning it and doubting it and not believing it and whatnot. When in essence, instead, I would encourage one to reflect on why, why are you even doubting it to begin with, right? You've been given some gift and here you are doubting it, right? And not trusting in that other person. And so I was basically encouraging people to reflect on why, to just do this exercise of like, why am I even thinking of this of myself? Or why am I not believing in this compliment or this recognition from this person, whether it's a coworker, a client, whatever, colleague, superior, anything? Why am I speaking to myself this way? Right? And see what comes up. And then again, ask yourself, keep digging. Well, why does that even matter? And then something's going to come up that okay, keep going. And why does that even matter? Right? Just be curious. We've stopped being curious. We were all curious as kids,
Yes.
right? We would ask why this, why that, but mom, why? Eventually, we were told to zip it because we would just be annoying, right? Well, unfortunately, we stopped asking questions after that. And I really was encouraging people to, if ever you're not recognizing your uniqueness or you're being hard on yourself and talking to yourself very negatively, just pause, please. Take a pen and paper, take a deep breath, and ask yourself why. Why are you even saying this? Would you be saying this to one of your best friends or one of the people you love? If the answer is no, then no, you're not supposed to be saying it to yourself either, right? So I think that's what I can't recall. It was a couple weeks ago and I've had a few things going on. So I'm not sure if there was something else, but this is what I remember the most that I may have spoken
Yeah, this
about.
is exactly what it was. This is exactly what it was. And I wanted, and around the same time, this is what came out from you. And it was such a beautiful thing because I always believe that each one of us is so unique and we are so special that we need to learn to celebrate ourselves. We forget to value who we are in this world, and each one of us, complete and incomplete world, right?
Right.
And I say that with a lot of responsibility, because if the world was complete, then we would stop inspiring people. We would stop, enriching people. We would stop impacting people, and we'd say, "Oh, we are contented. Everything is fine. Let's sit back and relax." So I think that is something that was so beautiful that came out of that conversation. Having said that, and your experience, when you look at, and today being a very special day for a very large part of the world, but then for us in India, it is called Basant Panchami, which means that it is the beginning of spring, right? And there's a lot of flowers and blooming and everything else. So I take that in a very positive mode. But having said that, what would be your advice to be it parents or partners or family members on the kind of red flags that you need to watch out for? And how do you deal with the red flags? What are the red flags that you need to look at, in people around you, who you love, who you might associate with, might be your colleagues, it might be your friends, it might be your employees. What are the red flags one need to see, and how do they act upon that? That there's something going on with this person. It might be just going up to them and say, "Hey, do you want me to, what is it that you think would be the advice that you would like to give?"
Well, I'm glad you bring this up because I used to volunteer actually for a year at a suicide helpline. And the busiest day of the year where we got the calls was on this day, was on February 14th. So suddenly people who are, let's say, not in a relationship are faced with this holiday anyway that is celebrating being in a relationship. It's really celebrating love among other things, but very often people at this point start to be very hard on themselves on this particular day. They won't necessarily be hard on themselves the day before or the day after, but this particular day, seeing everything they see on social media or walking into any store really and being bombarded with all kinds of marketing around this day, tends to get to a lot of people. Now, whatever the case, where red flags are concerned, this could be a whole show on its own. But if ever you're just noticing someone, well, looking sad, let's start with that, right? Like there's a big difference between someone smiling and someone not smiling, right? And not to say that everyone needs to be smiling all the time, but pay close attention. If someone is suddenly like just really keeping to themselves, right? Or is having a hard time in the work that they're doing. You're seeing them a little bit more stressed or acting out, like maybe getting a little bit more frustrated or whatnot. The "how are you" question can go a long way, okay? Provided you're willing to sit there and actually listen to the answer. Because unfortunately, too many people just be like, "Hey, how are you?"
Listen.
and stick around,
Yes.
right? So how are you? And, are you okay? But be ready though. If you're going to ask the question, be ready to stick around, right? Because they might not be okay. Just be there, be present. This is what's lacking in today's world. Being present. We're usually distracted, so we may ask the question and then grab this or then move on or whatnot. Or even you might send the message, "Are you okay?" and then end up going to do something else on social media, and the person's responded and you're not really present to just listen to them in that moment, right? So starting off by just paying attention, noticing, are people looking a little bit more tired? What's going on there? You're looking a little, hey, you look a little bit more tired. What's up? Are you okay? And if at that point they're like, no, I'm not. Okay, well, let's talk. Let's have a coffee or a tea or whatever. Let's just go for a walk. But actually be present. This is the one thing, if I would recommend anything right now, is just be present with someone that you see is having a bit of a hard time. And if they're having a very big hard time and this is a little bit too overwhelming, okay, I definitely give a lot of tips in my book. But beyond that, you could even do an online search as to what to do if ever you seem, if you feel a little bit more concerned about someone's behavior changes, or perhaps them telling you that they're considering, ending their lives or whatnot. There's definitely information out there. And I do outline quite a bit of it in my book, also coming from my own experience, right? Because I could see things that are available and things that are usually suggested, but I also was that person who tried to end my life. So I am better able to attest to what really works and what doesn't. But ultimately, compassion. Yeah, being present and showing some compassion.
Yeah.
This is what I could say for today, because otherwise, like I said, we could talk days. Yeah.
No, being a parent and having had children who have gone through challenges, some of the things that I saw as red flags was definitely the withdrawal. Well, one of the things was the withdrawal, and then the second thing that is when a child is performing extremely well in class, and all of a sudden, the child is failing or not performing well, does not want to go out to play, does not want to mingle with their friends, does not like the same programs that they have loved watching, does not like the food that, you made their favorite food. As a parent, I believe that, we need to exist in our children's life actively rather than passively. Passive parenting is not fun. Neither is it going to be beneficial to you as a parent or them as children. And I think active parenting is very, very important. Not giving them gadgets and say, oh, well, carry on and watch your TV or, play your games or whatever, and then, do your thing. Parenting is a huge responsibility. And I would urge each one of them out there, if you're a parent, be an active parent. If you've given birth to a child, it's your responsibility to be there for them. And it's not through giving them gadgets and materialistic things or, whatever they want, but being there for them. The best gift that you can give to a child is your time and your attention, and you being a parent and an adult and a great friend too, by the way, and not be that parent where your children cannot come back to talk to you. So lovely advice as always. What can I say? The next thing I'm going to ask you about is a very interesting thing. So again, comes back to not just today, but every day that, this happens where you have that sense of not having something. So I would say your advice to people, adults and youngsters on, I wish I had that syndrome. I call it, I wish I had that, or the sensation of, oh, I don't have this, or I am missing this. That's that sense of gratitude that you always talk about. But then, is there more that somebody can do on, instead of thinking, oh, I wish I had this? To me, I don't know, maybe as a kid, I might have had that, but I don't even remember a time, long time where I could say, I wish I had, but if I ever have to say, I wish I had, I would say, I wish I had the power to erase this I wish I had syndrome. And so, I could bring up some kind of a magic and people can say, thank you that we have this.
So part of the mission of the 316 movement is for people to integrate gratitude into their daily lives. Now, when I recovered from that episode, from that attempt to end my life on 316 of 2011, those numbers 3 and 16 then became very ingrained in my mind. Okay. So 6 months later, after recovering, I would post every day at that time a Facebook status. We didn't have Twitter, LinkedIn, anything at the time. This is 2011. I would post, it's 316 and I'm having coffee here. It's 316 and I'm stuck in traffic. It's 316 and I'm writing a paper for a class that's mandatory and I don't want to be taking, right? It's 316 and whatever, okay? So most people didn't know why I was doing that. And one day I deactivated my Facebook account, and within that same week, people who were actually friends, because, you know, on Facebook, we could have a plethora of people that are our friends, but actual friends who had my phone number were starting to send text messages and be like, hey, it's 316. What are you doing? So at that point, I said, whoa, people are pausing at 316 and wondering what I'm doing. And this is great, but not great at the same time. Like, I'm glad I influenced from back then, you know, being an influencer, to get you to pause at 316. But to wonder what I'm doing, no, I need you to pause, right? And think of what you're grateful for. Because when I was sitting there and posting that I'm stuck in traffic or I'm writing a paper I don't want to be writing, it's because I was grateful to be alive, to be able to do that, right? So most people didn't know why I was doing that. So from then, I've been coaching people and suggesting and mentoring people to set an alarm on your phone at 3:16 p.m. And in the middle of your day, let it go off and just pause for a second and think of what you have and think of what you're grateful for, right? And now I know students could be in class, right? Parents could be at work, could be in a business meeting, could be in whatever. So it's not always easy for people to let their phone go off at 3:16 p.m. Okay. But this is where I said, well, you know what? Pick the 16th minute of another hour, set it in your phone. Maybe 7:16 works better for you, or 9:16 or 1:16, because it's 3:16 somewhere. It's 3:16 somewhere in the world.
Somewhere
so you
in
can
the world, yeah.
several times a day at the 16th minute and look around you, look at what you have, and be grateful for what you have, rather than constantly wanting more and wishing for more. This syndrome you said, right? There's nothing wrong with wanting more, in the sense that, like, you're setting goals and you're working towards accomplishing certain things and acquiring, yes, more. Yeah. But if you don't even notice what you have, it's not going to matter when you acquire more anyway. You're just going to want more after that. So I highly encourage people to welcome this mindful interruption, right? Welcome this interruption at 3:16 or when it's 3:16 somewhere, and think of what you're grateful for, starting with your pulse. And I bet you'll be less preoccupied with what you don't have at that point. So this is one of the greatest suggestions I could make. And this is really a key point of the 316 movement, is to get people worldwide to pause when it's 316 somewhere. And for 316 Day to be a day on the calendar worldwide where we all pause all together and share gratitude all day long and normalize the conversation so that no one suffers in silence ever again. I hope that answered the question.
Yes, it did. And believe me, I mean, as I said, I knew before I started this particular show, not just today, even when I invited you, that one show would never be enough for a lot of reasons. Because, today when we look at the world, the amount of suffering that is happening is because we as human beings have created more problems than we have created solutions. For ourselves. And collectively we are extremely successful at creating as many so having said that, I would love to know about the kind of programs that you do for corporates and for universities and schools. I would like to know that, so people can reach out to you here in the UAE, in India, definitely, because the world is an oyster today and we're online, because I like doing things online for people across the world. I know that between both of us, probably we can do a lot of things. We are planning on it. But what is it that they can reach out to you for? whether it's a corporate or a university or a school, and of course, Nurture Life and its members and followers. Let me know.
Well, essentially, I put together a course whereby whatever tools, right, we were missing growing up and in school, right, the pieces that we were never taught about our inner critic, how to replace that inner monologue, right? How to listen to our needs, learn to make decisions, whether in our career or in our lives, in our relationships with our, in regards to our own needs, how to more effectively communicate, how to more effectively let go of anger that does not serve us, right? How to forgive, all of these things. We were not taught how to do any of this, how to build our own self-esteem and our own self-confidence, right? How to be able to better, more effectively manage stress or make it work for us rather than against us. None of these things were taught to us in school. So I made it a point. I wanted to put together a course that, eventually it would be great if it would be in curriculum across the world, but it'll be a long time before we pierce through that. However, in terms of at the corporate level or the university level, any which way we do this, whether I'm giving a talk and providing tools, whether I'm providing my course, or at the corporate level, again, providing workshops to prevent burnout. I want to focus on prevention. I've been there, done that. I don't want anybody to go there and experience that. Life is too short to be and feel anything else but alive. I keep saying this, right? So at the corporate level,
totally,
people could be much more productive if they weren't harboring all kinds of unnecessary suffering, such as copious amounts of stress and pressure, right, and frustration. And if people knew how to communicate more effectively what they feel and need without feeling guilty, then teams would work even more productively, right? So that's something, yes, that I cover at the corporate level, among other things, right? How people could recognize the signs, right, amongst each other to be able to be more collaborative and helpful to each other so that people don't burn out and experience depression. Because again, remember, it doesn't discriminate. So this is where, that piece comes in at the corporate level, allowing people to be more productive and maintain sustained peak performance. So as long as you're suffering unnecessarily and feeling guilty and feeling pressure and talking to yourself negatively and being hard on yourself because you didn't make the sale or whatnot, you're not, at that point, you're not high performing. You might still be high achieving, but with a lot of pressure and stress, you're not high performing at that point. And then where universities and students are concerned, well, it happened to me when I was 18 the first time. I don't want students to go through that. It's absolutely not worth it, right? So really equipping them with tools that are not available in a textbook, because it'll be a very long time before these tools are just in a textbook at the university level, right? So that's also what I want to do, prevent students from burning out and crossing over into depression. That's how I could help basically on both fronts.
Wonderful. Now, one question that I would definitely ask is, because we do this on every show of ours, what is the one thing that the world does not know about Sophia? That one secret that only Sophia has, and what is that one thing that people do not know about you that they're going to hear for the first time on the show?
You know what? I'm a pretty open book and my life is on my Instagram stories quite a bit. So I'm trying to think, what have I not? So people on the show probably obviously have not heard a lot. What's the one thing? That up until, you know what? This is probably something most people don't know. As I've become a mental health champion and, have founded this movement, honestly, up until maybe a year ago or less, I was still afraid. I was still afraid to experience this again. I was still afraid quite a bit. And while writing my book, all my trauma came up and I was really worried. I didn't want to become a parent myself. And I played a little small myself out of fear of doing too much and possibly becoming depressed again, or burning out and becoming depressed again. So that's something that most people don't know. As I'm sitting there and championing this cause and really wanting more people to acquire emotional wealth, as I've been doing it, most people don't know that up until maybe, I would say 8-9 months ago, I was still very afraid that I would experience this again. But now with all the healing that I've done ever since writing this book, that's no longer a thing. But that's true. That's the truth.
So the book I think is going to spill a lot of light on a lot of things that have been unexplored by many people. I look forward to your book, to the launch of your book, and I'm hoping that I will be there at the launch. So for those of you who are in the UAE who are seeing the show, Sophia is going to be here from the 23rd of February, if I'm not wrong, and she's going to be there for quite some time. So do reach out to me or her through our LinkedIn profile if you would like her to speak in your school or university, or be part of your corporate employee welfare program or something like that. Kindly do let us know. Now we come to the penultimate portion of our program, and something that is very different about Converse with KS on Nurture Lives platform is our guest gets to ask the host 2 questions.
Yes.
So you get an opportunity to ask me 2 questions. So tell me what it would be.
Since I'm very big on normalizing the conversation, right, surrounding this type of suffering. Again, maybe I'm like crossing a line by asking such a question, but I'm all about normalizing the conversation. I want people to be able to talk about mental health related struggles they've had over coffee, right? And that for us to normalize it to the point one day that when we look back, we don't even believe that it was once a thing, right? To not talk about it. So I'm wondering, what I would like to know, or if you'd be willing to share, is if there was ever a time where, you know, you were experiencing quite a bit of challenges in your own mental health, whether it was to the point of experiencing depression or coming close or anything of this nature. You know, has this ever been something that has affected you directly? And if not directly, perhaps indirectly in terms of close family or whatnot.
Wow. Most definitely. I would, I speak honestly, and I would definitely always tell you or anybody the truth. Lost my mother at a very, very young age of 17. So my first, because she had cancer. So when I got to know she had cancer, definitely devastating it was. All right. After that, when I lost her, I had a stepmother. Things were not so great. So yes, I went through a whole lot of challenges. And going further, after I lost her, around my younger age, I went through a very traumatic experience personally that devastated me. And at that point of time, definitely there was a question of, do I need to live? Maybe I need to die. But that split second, it was just for a split second. And immediately there was this thought process, because I was very huge on faith even then. So my next immediate response to my own question was, hey, you know what? You're alive because you have a greater purpose in this world. So kick yourself, get up, and go towards that. Whatever it is, find that purpose. And then, of course, life went by. And then, of course, I went through a divorce. And I was a single mom. Again, life was not very kind. And yes, so I would be lying if I said that I never went through challenges or, mental health issues or depression. Of course I did. But then, thank God, I think I actually call myself a positivity tablet. I bounce back very easily. I've got great support. I've got the blessings of my spiritual guide always. Somehow he just seems to be there. How, I have no idea, but my spiritual guide, my guru, has been there throughout my life. I've been very, very lucky that way. I've also seen my family suffer through it. My mother had clinical depression through her cancer. My kids have gone through PTSD and clinical depression. So, we all deal with it one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 minute at a time, 1 minute at a time, or one episode at a time. And, and today, as having been through so much, I love being there for whoever wants to wants me to be there for them. And I have, like you're championing a cause, I am championing a cause for mankind. I want to be there for anybody who does not have somebody, because I know what it is like to have nobody in this world.
Wow.
Yeah. I hope
so I don't know.
the question. Yeah.
It does, and I'm so grateful for you to have been so honest and open, because it definitely contributes to normalizing the conversation. This is how it starts. If not, this is how it continues, because we were already normalizing from the very beginning. So, do you still want me to ask a second question? Because maybe that one was a little too big. No. Since I do talk about converting adversity into prosperity, and really the whole purpose of teaching people to be more grateful on a day-to-day basis, and even if it's for just 1 minute a day at 316, right, 1 minute at a time, is to become more mentally resilient, really, because the more you do this, and as you're faced with trying times, the more you'll be able to pull out the good, right, rather than be totally focused on the bad, quote unquote, or the more difficult experience. So I'm wondering if there's one of your experiences that, even though so perhaps heartbreaking or difficult or devastating or whatnot, that you're actually able to say, you know what, I'm really grateful for this particular experience because it's allowed me to do this.
You'll have to repeat the question. I missed out the question. You said, devastating experience. After that, I could not hear you.
So I'm wondering if there's a certain challenging experience, like if there's a certain challenging time in your life that you're grateful to have experienced said adversity, because today it has led you to do this, whatever this is.
Wow, I would say every single one of them. What I went through as a youngster, which technically any young girl wouldn't want to go through, whether it was my mother's death or my experience with what I went through personally, which I wouldn't want to speak about because people love to send out. So I wouldn't speak about it openly for that reason. But then, that particular episode itself, the fact I went through a divorce, all of them, every single episode in my life, I am thankful it happened to me. Maybe somebody else would not have been able to bounce back. Maybe somebody else would have been totally devastated. But I am thankful for every single thing that has happened in my life, because it has brought me closer to the purpose that I stand for today, with all my faith, made my faith even more stronger in the Supreme, in God, brought me closer to my spiritual guide, my guru, than I ever would have envisioned. Brought me to Dubai to dream about doing something so much larger than life for mankind. I exist for that. So I'm thankful for every experience. I wouldn't change a single thing in this world. I am grateful that every single thing that happened to me, good or bad, happened because I am who I am because of that. Every single second bad or good experience, and I'm a better human being because of that. Am I done yet? No, not at all. There's a lot more that I need to do. But yeah, I'm more energetic because God has been on my side, and I've got amazing partners. I think I wouldn't have found my partner, especially, I would say he owns my soul, Hansab. He is my partner, one of my partners in the business. And also he's my guide, my soulmate, or you can name it. The list is too long. I don't think I could have found him if it was not for what I've been through. And, both of us share the same spiritual guide. So none of that could have happened without my experiences. And I think I treasure myself more. I value myself more. And I value everybody that I meet because of those experiences. And that includes you.
So it's safe to say that all of these experiences happened for you, not to you.
Yes. Very much. Very, very much. Thank you so much. Those two were lovely, lovely questions. We have come to the end of the program. I cannot thank you enough for being part of this program, because today was a very, very special episode for me. I come back after a sabbatical of 2 months, and hence I had to start with you because I had decided that this had to happen. Thank you so much for being part of Nurture Life's Converse with KS. Thank you for enriching our audience, our viewers, and I'm sure that there are people who will watch the recordings because they couldn't be on it now. Thank you for being part of a special part of my life. Thank you for existing in my sphere. I'm so grateful that I have found you. And thanks to Talha and the Honest Network for connecting us, definitely. And we look forward to hearing more from you. And thank you so much, viewers, for logging in, for tuning in and listening to us again. Keep showering us with the love that you have for all these months that you have. And we look forward to having a wonderful guest again next week, same day, same time. Sophia, any words, parting words for our audience?
It'll be 3:16 somewhere soon enough, okay? So at 45 minutes, it'll be 3:16 somewhere. So I'm saying it from now. I'm really encouraging you.
Yeah.
Set your alarm and let it go off in the 44 minutes from now. It'll be 3:16 somewhere. And know that I'm really grateful for you, Kay, and that we had this chat today online and that we normalized the conversation further. Extremely grateful.
Thank you so very much. Love you. And thank you very much, viewers. Good night from both of us, from Dubai and from Greece. Take care. Ciao. Bye-bye.
Bye.